Hello and welcome to D-SETI. We are going to talk about contact with UAPs and their occupants. If you don't know what a UAP is, just think of UFO. This is a funny phrase to say close encounters of the third kind. It's a funny way to say interactions with extraterrestrials or non-human intelligences. So you might have heard of all the fantastic stories about UFO sightings and ET contact. Sometimes we use the term NHI, which means non-human intelligence, which is a term we use in place of extraterrestrials if we're not sure what's in charge of the UAP. We're not really sure that these are even vessels from other planets. We're not really sure. I use the term extraterrestrial in a sort of way hearkening back to old times, old philosophy where there's this terrestrial sphere in which we live, and anything above that is sort of supernatural or extraterrestrial, even if it is angelic or ancestor or spirit or whatever else. So this is one of the ways that we're using language. There have been stories of ET/NHI contact for at least as long as there have been UFO and UAP stories. How long this goes? Well, they may be stories that were gods, fairies, or angels, may in part actually be these stories. So I know when I look back to the ancient Greek healing temples of Asclepius, who is a shape-shifting reptilian humanoid that lives in the sky and comes at night and visits people to produce miraculous healings. This is actually very, very consistent with the stories of shape-shifting reptilian humanoids that live in the sky and interact with people through UFO sightings or other types of contact phenomena nowadays. So I say they're actually very, very similar. These stories are very difficult to make sense of because they are highly strange. This is the quality of ET contact experiences. So it may be best to think of them like dreams, while at the same time acknowledging that dreams can be real. So there are thousands of reports every year. You can find them. You can look for them. There are well-written books about these experiences by reputable people. If you don't think there are, just go to your library, go to the internet. There are things like reporting centers like the National UFO Reporting Center or MUFON, thousands of reports that have been vetted by people who are trained to vet these things. There are governmental reports like the UAP Preliminary Assessment that is a 9-page report. The U.S. Congressional Inquiry involved 400 reports corroborated by multiple sensor data about these things. There are academic surveys like FREEZE Beyond UFO survey that looks at more than 4,000 cases of ET UFO contact that is consciously remembered, not remembered through dreams or hypnosis. There are citizen science and contact networks like LightNet, like the Experiencer Support Association, or like CE5 ET Let's Talk. There are thousands of reports coming out of them of ET contact, as well as case studies, books like Bud Hopkins' Missing Time, which looked over 19 cases or so, as well as Dr. John Mack, who was head of Harvard Psychiatry, his book Abduction or Passport to Cosmos, which again kind of compiles hundreds of cases actually of these contact reports. It is really important to acknowledge that there are many, many different dimensions of experience associated with each of these reports. You may be thinking of them like a singular, historic, objective event, but actually when you look into them, they have many different layers of experience. So Jacques Vallée, who was the model for the French researcher Lacombe in the Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie, he describes his model for describing the impacts of UAP and non-human intelligence encounters through 6 layers. So this is the guy who literally literally forms our model for what a UFO researcher is. He's very well respected. He's got degrees in like computer science or informatics, and he works on this as well as many other things. So he's very well respected in the field. He describes these 6 different layers as physical, meaning it deals with more or less physical evidence like marks on the ground. Anti-physical, meaning it involves duplications, disappearances, missing climb, etc. These things are like impossible things according to our understanding. And this is similarity with dreams, actually, is the only other case in our experience that we have of these impossible things is actually dreams. And that's one of the things that we are trained to observe in lucid dream practice, is these impossible signs. And therefore, some of the premise here is actually, let's take that practice from lucid dreaming and bring it here because this is so remarkably similar. There's a psychosocial aspect to this, a psychosocial layer involving impacts on human psychology, a physiological layer relating to sensation and body control, a psychic layer that involves ESP, dreams, telepathic connection, and a cultural layer which involves worldviews, theories, and religious experience. So these are all the different layers that we need to really consider when we look to these things. So when the US Congress goes, okay, we're just dealing with sensor data, just know they're dealing with 1 out of 6 layers of experience that all have incredible impacts and a richness to them. ET and non-human intelligence contact is dreamlike. This is the foundational premise of D-SETI. So the Dr. Edgar Mitchell's Foundation for Research into Extraordinary and Extraterrestrial Experience conducted a survey of more than 4,000 experiencers, and the researchers found that abduction is a limited phenomenon. So when you think of ET contact as abduction, just know that this is a very limited aspect of a much larger experience. It's something like 10 or 20% of the reports kind of involve something like abduction. The rest is something else. So most contact experiences are actually positive or understood to be positive after a while. Sometimes it's confusing to start, much like dreams. Much like dreams. This is the same pattern we see in dreams. Contact leads to positive lifestyle inventory changes. So that means you're more spiritual, you're more ecologically responsible. Same thing happens when you work with dreams. And then the phenomenology of experiences indicate that consciousness is primary. So think about the quantum mechanics, think about observer effect. So we look at all these data, we go, oh my God, actually, consciousness is primary. There's something else happening than just billiard balls moving in space, nuts and bolts UFOs. That's what this says. And so what that means, what that implies, we have to figure it out. The researchers subsequently produced a 4-volume book set of theory and testimonies related to this hypothesis. I contributed the chapter on lucid dreams as a contact modality. So what is D-SETI? D-SETI stands for either the Dream Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence or the dream studies of extraterrestrial intelligence, depending on you and your perspective. ET contact is dreamlike, therefore D-SETI honors you as the dreamer as a final authority regarding the significance of dreams or dreamlike experiences. That includes ontological significance. So is it a dream? Is it real? Or is it both? You get to decide. So D-SETI offers dreamwork through the dreamwork sessions and educations through the work of me, Daniel Rekshan. I hold a master's in East-West psychology, a certificate in hypnotherapy, beyond quantum healing certification, and I'm a PhD student in the Integral Noetic Science program at the California Institute for Human Science. It is really important to note that ET contact and dreamwork are triggering, taboo, and projection prone, and therefore you are invited to be mindful as you continue this journey of exploration, which you can go deeper on at dseti.org.